So this next story, I'm going to probably look at Melissa while I tell this story.
Oh, no.
This next
Do you
one.
want me to break Wirecast?
I want to see your reaction to this one. So there's a gentleman that I have not been a fan of for a very, very long time by the name of Randy Orton.
Okay.
I haven't been a fan of his because, number one, I've always heard he's an asshole in real life. But number two, his in-ring character hasn't really changed in 10 years.
So is he a heel?
He's now a heel.
Oh, okay.
But he was the same character as a babyface for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah, but now he's a heel. So there's a gentleman by the name of Court Bauer. He used to be a writer for WWE. He's now the promoter of MLW.
Okay.
He does a podcast called Ribbing and Junk. And on a recent episode of that podcast, and I don't know if I ever told you the story about Amy, the girl from the Diva show, Sean.
Yeah, but you did last week.
No, that was Leilani or Layla Milani.
Okay, Amy Weber.
Yeah, this is Joy, whatever her last name was.
Joy Giovanni?
No, Amy somebody. It was
Amy Weber then.
Amy Weber.
Amy Weber, yeah.
Amy Weber. So maybe we'll get to that one in a minute. But anyway, so Court Bauer on his podcast claimed that whenever WWE hired a new writer, right, Randy Orton would go into the room, wherever they were, he would pull out his penis, he would touch his penis with his hand, and then he would extend his hand for a handshake with the new writer. If the new writer refused to shake his hand for obvious reasons, Orton would say something along the lines of, "What, are you big leaguing me? Do I have to go to Vince McMahon and Stephanie and tell them about you?" And he would basically threaten to get them fired. After this aired on the podcast, I guess word started getting around about Court Bauer saying this. Somebody on Twitter tweeted Court Bauer and said, "Did this really happen?" And Court Bauer responded and said, "Yes." WWE released a statement to Wrestling Observer, and they said that they were, quote, looking into the matter. Fortunately for Melissa, I did not do that when I hired her.
Yep.
Fortunately. How would you feel if you were a WWE writer and Randy Orton, and you got to understand, Randy Orton's got seniority in that company.
Of course,
He's got some stroke in that company. Pun.
Talk about stroke.
I was going to say, no pun intended. What if he came into the room and you knew as a new employee that guy's got power and pulled out his dick, touched it, went to shake your hand? How would you feel about that whole thing?
See, that's even worse than like if it were to happen in, oh God, sorry, Jimmy, if it were to happen in an office scenario or something, because performers get away with that shit all the time.
Performers get away with that shit.
Oh, that's awful.
This is Harvey Weinstein kind of on just a lower level.
Have you heard the Kennedy story that I told on the SmackDown show?
No.
Mr. Kennedy, in a shoot interview a couple years ago, said that he would be backstage and Randy Orton would just show up with his balls hanging out and teabag his wrestling boots. And that Kennedy would be like, "Randy, there is nobody else around for this to be funny to. Why are you doing this?" And we've heard about, shitting in bags and stuff like that.
So Amy Weber.
To me, it's like, that's violent territory. You're getting swung on. You're catching a smack. You're getting cock Nakamura'd.
And see, the problem, and this is classic bullying, right? The problem is that he feasts on those that aren't going to fight back because of the position that he's in.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. The story that I was told one time, and I'm pretty sure I told you this on the podcast before, Amy Weber, who was part of the Diva Search, she was in the same class as Joy Giovanni and Carmella, not today's Carmella, a different Carmella, and Layla Milani. She quit the company, and she was on SmackDown. I think she was JBL's administrator on TV. She quit the company, and what led to her quitting was, first, she was overseas on a tour, and JBL was, as we know, is an asshole too. JBL and Randy Orton got a hold of a photo of her in a magazine and created a kind of pornography poster and put it up on walls in places, knowing that people would walk by and see it. Then when they were on the plane coming back and she was trying to get sleep on the plane, this is her allegation, but you know what happened. Randy Orton poured a Bloody Mary all over her on the plane. And so as soon as they landed, she went to Shane McMahon, who was overseeing that tour, and said, "I'm done," and quit on the spot. And she was in a prominent TV position at the time, and she just said, "I've had enough." He has known to be a dick since he was a kid starting in the company. I don't know how long ago this Court Bauer allegation, I don't know if this still happens now. Have you heard if he still does this?
I don't think he does.
Okay.
I've heard actually a lot over the past several years that
he's mellowed out, right?
That he's mellowed out, he's matured,
right.
He's changed, and
right.
I mean, the world was a little bit different then, but it wasn't that different.
No.
where that was okay.
Yeah, and again, call it what you want, but like Melissa said, because of who he is, nothing's going to come of it. WWE is not going to investigate it. Nothing's going to come of it, I don't think.